Welcome to this very special edition of the Check-In with the Doctor. I am, of course, your host, Chris White, and I am unbelievably delighted to welcome today's guest. She started a sales consulting business from zero about 2 years ago and has grown it to a seven-figure business. She's a LinkedIn expert. She has literally helped thousands, if not tens of thousands of people in our business sell better, enjoy their job more. And she's an unbelievably gifted and energetic person. Miss Sam McKenna, thank you so much for being here. How are you today?
You're so welcome for being here. I don't think my ego is going to fit through the door later, Chris. Thank you so much for the kind words. My absolute pleasure to be joining you today.
Well, thank you. So in the unlikely event that anybody who may be listening live or who may catch this after the fact doesn't know who you are, do you mind taking just a minute and introducing yourself?
Not at all. So I'm Sam McKenna, you guys. I am the founder and CEO of #Sam Sales Consulting. I have been in enterprise sales, both as an individual contributor and as an executive leader for about 15 years. Before I was starting this company, I was running the LinkedIn line of business for LinkedIn Sales Navigator, for any of you guys who are familiar with that. And I just have a deep passion for sales and changing the way we sell and being better and lifting our bar higher than we ever thought we could achieve and would be possible. So hopefully you'll get some great tactics and, if nothing else, a lot of enthusiasm out of today's chat.
And I know they will. Incidentally, I just ran a workshop this week for a company, but one of the gentlemen was a sales engineer with LinkedIn for about 8 years. So, I had to have a conversation with him, like, tell me what it's like to be a sales engineer with LinkedIn. So what inspired you? You have a great career. You're making a huge impact in the LinkedIn world and the sales world, and you decided to launch the business. So what was the impetus to move into that solopreneur world as you did?
You know, I think I'm the daughter of two entrepreneurs. My mom ran a variety of businesses over the course of her career. My dad went to the most prestigious hotelier school in Switzerland, where I'm originally from. And I think throughout my entire upbringing, I was able to see just what they could do, running their own businesses, how they could execute the things that they wanted to execute on. And it just felt like the time was right? So taking a leap of faith right before COVID hits, you guys, but taking a leap of faith and saying, I think we can really make positive impact. And I think for me, the most exciting part about starting this business was it's not just one team that I'm going to impact, right? The team that I'm running at LinkedIn or the leaders that I'm running at wherever it may be, but it's every single client we touch, we can make a positive impact to. So how can we do what I do really well, at scale, to use our overused tech word of the day. But I think it was such an easy decision to be able to do that. And, to be able to say, I think you think throughout your career, we should maybe do marketing this way, or if we did customer success or onboarding that way, it could be so much different. And now you have the opportunity to do that and actually execute on your dreams and then see what you can make of that yourself. It's too good to pass up. Yeah,
that's so fantastic. Have there been some major surprises in this really brief journey that you've been on?
I think I wish I could think of a negative surprise to give you and a good learning, but I will tell you what has been surprising, and I think just highlighting the importance of this. We've been so fortunate to have so much inbound demand for what we do, and where it really highlighted what was so important was the idea of building a brand before you go out on your own. So, if I had just never been on LinkedIn, if I had never posted my content, if I was never on stages at conferences, building a name for myself, we wouldn't have the same success we do now. So I think that was a surprise, like how quickly the business came in. And my team will tell you the same thing. It feels like a slow week when we close a deal or two,
That's
right?
amazing.
And I know, and I think they're also flabbergasted. Their husbands who have MBAs from Cambridge and Columbia are like, what is happening over there?
Right.
In the best way.
Yeah. And when you launched, did you think it would happen this quickly and it would take off this quickly?
Not a shot in hell. Sorry, there's my one curse, Chris. No, I first of all, I never thought that I would have employees. I thought, well, Sam Sales Consulting, it's just going to be me and I'll dabble and I'll help. I remember one of our first clients, in fact, kind of hesitated when I went into consulting, and he's like, it doesn't scale. You can't scale yourself. You have to build a tech product. We can absolutely scale ourselves. And that's exactly what we've done. We have 8 lines of business, 17 employees now, I think, 70 plus clients. We scaled, right? And you're right. Like, he was right. We can't just do it all as one person, right? But just to think about what the need is. And I think the very, very important point that we can also talk about, the idea of serving an underserved market. And that's exactly where we plug in for our clients.
So tell me a little bit more about that underserved market. What is the underserved market that you're serving?
Yeah, so I think this was probably one of the most impactful things that I learned in college. And I went to Florida State University. I mostly drank beer and did keg stands during my college experience. So, but I did learn one thing, and this was one of my final courses senior year, was the concept of serving an underserved market. So if I come now and I'm like, hey, I'm going to create a ride sharing company, someone's like, well, great. Like, we've kind of got that covered with Uber and Lyft and 16 other competitors. We're good. We're all set. So serving an underserved market really thinks about, like, what are clients not getting right now, right? So number one, the consulting and the way that we kind of make sure that their go-to-market strategy is set up, that pretty much anybody can do. But what can we do beyond that? So creating our BDR hotline is something that we did here. It's where we train BDRs, we answer their questions all day long, we give them great content. No one's doing that, right? Like, you can go and read that on forums and boards and all kinds of things, but a direct hotline where you can get tenured Sam Sales, type access all day long and advice all day long, great. Content writing. You look at the terrible sales emails that you guys get every single day. Chris, I'm sure you get like 20 of them. I get my favorite one that I got recently was, Dear Sam, I'm not sure if you guys are perfect for us, but I'd love to talk to you about what we could do. You're not sure if we're good for you, but you want me to give you, okay, cool. Dear God. But we rewrite that content, right? Like, let us look at your content. We'll rewrite it the Sam Sales way. We have a staff content writer on hand who teaches an MBA or a Master's of Fine Arts program in creative writing, is a published poet. Just thinking about, what can we do? What's bad in sales that we can really make better?
Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting to me because, and I don't know if you've ever heard me say this before, but for years I've been saying that I believe that the sales engineer role, as you well know, that's the group that I help, they've been underserved by the sales training, sales enablement, right, sales platform industries for decades. And I have to admit, if somebody had asked me, well, what about the BDRs? I must admit, I think I probably would have said, everybody's taking care of them. And now here you're saying that was actually an underserved market.
Yeah, well, I think one thing that's interesting, and there are definitely exceptions to this rule, but I find the BDR leaders that I've worked with in the past, there's a few that I will say are definite exceptions, but BDR leaders that I've worked with in the past or that we engage with on the client side, they've never been a BDR, they've maybe kind of been in a sales role before or been in sales enablement, but they don't know how to sell, they don't quite know what to tell their teams, right? Yeah. And these are our business development reps. They're junior, they're green, they're eager, they want to get promoted.
And there's one of them right now.
There's one of the BDRs right there. Oh my gosh.
That's what I love about the live. I mean, you can't get any better than that.
But the thing is that we've got such an opportunity to train these kids right? I say kids now, that really makes me feel old. So thinking about, how do we give them good advice? How do we tell them, when they get ghosted by a prospect, when someone new joins the conversation, when they get an internal referral, when they just can't crack into an account, how to write a great outbound email. Oh my gosh, I mean, hugely important. And I think the leaders don't quite know how to do that. So we're a great gap, filler, just not only for the leadership, right, for them to actually learn how to do it, but really to make sure that we train these BDRs to be exceptional at their jobs, to hit their quotas and hit their goals, and then to get promoted as AEs inside that organization. What a great, number one, way to attract talent, right, by investing in them with our hotline, but two, how to shape them and make sure that they grow into killer AEs for you. Like what a great process and path forward.
Exactly. I mean, really what I'm not the biggest baseball fan in the world, but it sounds to me like the farm system, right? For the major leagues,
yeah.
Right? We're actually we're preparing. And tell me if this resonates with you. I'm thinking back to some of the roles that I've had where we had some younger people, they were in a BDR position. They're sort of the forgotten people, right? They're sort of the forgotten kids. I mean, they sort of get bounced around to different managers, and the managers who do, sort of acquire them, it's sort of a thorn in their side, right? Well, I don't know what to do. Just get on email, just get on LinkedIn and start sending stuff, right?
And I think that's it. Like a lot of the advice, the feedback even we get is, my leader will tell me to get on LinkedIn or to go social sell or to send emails. And they're like, how do I do any of that? And I think it's just the little nuances and intricacies of the day-to-day job. The best way I can describe our BDR channels is that it's like little baby birds sitting in a nest, and they're just like squawking all day long. I mean, they are so eager to learn. They are sponges, right? We've got such an opportunity. And what an expense they are to an organization. Let's maximize, right, what they do and make sure that they get great meetings for us. They actually learn how to do their jobs correctly. I think this is why I'm so passionate about it, because this is where we can reshape the future of sales, right? It's not necessarily teaching our old dogs new tricks, right? Even I've been in sales for 15 years. It's not necessarily about changing how I do things. It's about changing the future of sales, right? So how do we shape and mold our up and comers to be killer at what they do, instead of just kind of take the old practices of, have you been eaten by an alligator, and is that why you're not responding to me? Oh my gosh.
Right. Well, and as you were talking, I was thinking, of course, the software world for the past, really 10 or 15 years has shifted to the subscription model, and it's software as a service. What I hear you saying is this is really skills development as a service.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's great way to put it. Great way to put it.
Like go ahead.
You go, Chris.
Well, it's just what an unbelievable service, not only to those organizations, but to the individuals. I mean, I'm thinking back to early in my career. I wish I had some service like that would just help me skill, right, on an as needed basis.
Well, and I think two things, like I'll share some pricing with you guys, that like if we have two BDRs that come on, right, we typically charge around $1,300 a person. So let's just say, and that's per month, by the way. So yes, but think about this. So $2,600 per month, let's call it $30,000 for the year. You've now gotten a manager effectively of your BDRs, and it's really a squad of us at Sam Sales. So most channels have anywhere between 2 or 3 SDR leaders, plus our chief of content, plus myself on these channels. Although I'm definitely less involved than the majority of them, but you get kind of a mini manager to help answer all of these questions, right? Take this off of your plate and make sure they get great advice, not advice from, I don't know, Bob, who's been in sales for 6 months and thinks he knows what he's doing. I'm sure Bob is lovely, however. But yeah, think about that. I will say one other really cool thing, and kind of back to the idea of how we scaled Sam Sales and what we did and serving an underserved market. We also looked for our talent in a non-traditional place. So almost every single person on our team is a military or an expat spouse. And I think what an incredible market to go after, what an underserved market, right? In terms of those spouses that are, kind of pushed to the side as they travel the world and fight for all of our things, on behalf of the United States. Like, what an incredible opportunity we have to employ them and to use them in a growing business. What I love about this too is that I don't think we deserve a single person that we have on our team. They are so overqualified, so overeducated, so overexperienced. Again, from our head of content, who is a published poet, to our chief of staff, who used to be director of communications for 2 senators on the Hill. We have 2 comedians on staff as well, who are trying to make it in LA at night, Sam salesing during the day. We really have a unique talent base here too.
Well, and what strikes me there is that it's not like you're hiring career-long salespeople, right?
Right.
And to me, you and I have talked about this offline. I mean, it's more important than ever before to be human in our jobs,
Oh my
right? We
gosh.
have
Yeah.
to be human more than ever in the role of a salesperson, right? And really, that's what you're bringing in. You're bringing in people from all walks of life, from different perspectives, right? Whether it's comedians or poets. And to me, the message for salespeople is stop thinking of yourself as a salesperson, right?
Right.
And think of yourself as a person first. Right.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that resourcefulness, that ability to build rapport, that ability to use your previous experience and everything to be, somebody who helps someone along, right? Like to your exact point, like stop thinking about yourself as a salesperson and just think about you are helping somebody achieve their goals, solve challenges, get ahead in whatever it is that they're looking to do. Like I think that was also what changed the lens for me when I got into sales. I was so reticent to get into it because I was like, oh, I don't want to make 100 cold calls. I don't want to inconvenience anybody. But when I really changed the lens to think about this is me helping people, right? They're talking to me for a reason, not just for their health. That really changed it for me and made this such an easy choice for a lifelong career.
I love that. Now, incidentally, so I think every time you speak, my ideas are firing in different directions. So I'm trying to keep them together. When I first got into sales, and again, a little bit about my background. I mean, I was an IT consultant for 15 years.
Yeah.
And sales was below me. I didn't want to get into sales, right? So I was very reluctant to get into sales as well. So I can totally, and I think there's a lot of people that fall into that category. Now, you use the word cold call.
Yeah.
I need you to help me put this to rest once and for good. I sort of believe the cold call is dead. Now, am I crazy when I say that, or are you in the same camp? Where are you on this cold calling sort of conversation?
I know that we're all everyone has one black or white kind of point of view, right? And it's still an incredibly important part of the process. I've got other people who say it's completely dead, right? And we don't want to talk about this whatsoever. And then there's kind of the middle ground of like, well, they're not really cold calls, they're warm because people are coming in inbound or whatever you may believe. Here's what I think. I think from an efficiency perspective, I think maybe from a manners perspective, that's kind of my old school upbringing, Swiss upbringing there, speaking about that. But I think from that perspective, I'm in the camp. Cold calling isn't dead. It's just not part of our process. I will tell you, if you talk to the reps that I've had on my team that have been unbelievably successful, they've never once made a cold call. I've never once made a cold call. It just doesn't feel right to me. But let's talk about some stats even about why cold calling is, in my opinion, ineffective, right? Number one, it takes about 7 touches on average to get someone to answer a call. So I'm going to sit here, I'm going to pick up my phone, I'm going to dial you, Chris, I'm going to hope to God you answer. Then you don't, then I'm going to do that again on Monday, on Wednesday, on Friday. And you're going to be so annoyed by seeing my name pop up, you're just going to continue to ignore it. Now, let's say you do pick up on the 7th call. What we're seeing is average show rate for cold call meetings is 37%. So I've had to work my buns off to get you to even answer the phone. And then the second thing I've had to do is hope to God that you show up, which there's significantly higher odds that you won't versus that you will. So why go to all that effort? I think if you can take a step back and think, how do we really write something that's compelling in our emails, right? This is what we do all day long, as you guys know. We think about how do we make sure that the email that you send actually captures somebody's attention. Don't hammer them and just try to corner them and get them on the phone and get them to pick up. Write a really fantastic email. Take 5 to 7 minutes, right, to do your homework on that person. Do a little show me you know me, if you will, in the subject line. Write a compelling value proposition in a sentence or two in your email and try to get them to agree to meet with you because you actually prove value versus just corner them on the phone where they said yes just to get you off and then didn't show up. I'm going to say one more thing on this and then I'll stop talking. One of the things that I get back from sales leaders is like, show me you know me, doing our research. Oh, it sounds like a lot of work. Like that's just inefficient. I'll tell you inefficient. Making 7 phone calls and then some to find somebody on the phone. Just the act of doing that. You add up all that time, I bet you probably spend double, if not triple, the time that you would on just show me, you know me on one single email, and then sending a thread through via an outreach platform or whatever it is that you might use. My opinion, so much more polite, so much more effective, and so much more efficient and scalable. No strong opinions.
I so agree, and I so appreciate you going through that. The next time somebody asks me about or challenges me about cold calling, I may pull this little video clip out and just say, just do me a favor and spend a minute listening to this perspective. Incidentally, Sam, allow me to just pause for a moment and say hello to anybody we might have with us. I never bring up LinkedIn so I can watch, because I just want to, focus on the person I'm talking to. So I don't know who we have with us. If we do have anybody with us who wants to say hello or ask Sam a question, I invite you to do so in the chat. And of course, if you're listening after the fact and this is in the recording, thank you so much for taking a minute and listening to a few things that we have to say. So as you were sharing that response about the cold call, if you didn't go to the frame next to you, the show me you know me, I was going to say, this sounds a little bit like show me you know me, which I know is one of your hashtag Sam Sales hacks,
yeah,
which you've become a little bit famous for. Do you care to share another one of your favorite sales hacks?
Yeah. Let's talk about the one on the other side, an easy one. Urgent bird gets the worm. I've been talking about this forever, right? We all know early bird gets the worm, but to me, it's really the urgent bird that gets the worm. So I posted on this on LinkedIn earlier this week. I got a lot of response and a lot of opinions. In the last 2 weeks, I've had no less than 3, I think actually 4, friends who recommended services to me. So something I was looking for, whether it be swag or software or whatever it may be. And so my friend said, Bill, you should meet Sam. I think Sam could use your services, etc. In almost all of those cases, I think in every case, it took more than 4 business days for each of those people to respond to that email introduction, to that referral, to the introduction of a CEO who can buy and who has an interest in your service. I think that's bananas. And frankly, it just tells me, I'm stealing this quote from Amy Volas, where she said, this sets the stage for what it's going to be like to work with you. And that's exactly it. So whether you respond quickly or you take 4 days to respond, oh my gosh, I think that urgency can also make or break your deal. Very odd, strange example, but I'll give you, I posted on my Nextdoor app a few weeks ago and I was like, hey, spring break's about to go into effect. If anybody has high schoolers that want to come and weed and mulch our yard, which has a lot of mulch, we'd be happy to pay anybody that wants to do this in spring break. And we still have people that are like, hey, I saw your post 2 weeks ago and I meant to reach out, but can we do this? No, we already hired someone 2 weeks, 1 week, 7 days and 6 hours or whatever ago. Move your buns, right? I always say that, but show that urgency. I think a couple things, right? Whether it's an inbound lead that comes in, jump on it. Whether it's a referral, show that urgency. Whether it's somebody that posts, let's say on a board like Sales Hacker or something like that, that says like we could use this service. Show urgency and saying we'd love to work with you. And I think that not only can that make or break that deal, right, for the speed of how quickly someone's looking to do things, but that setting the stage I think is so important. I'll say one more thing here. Sometimes when we get inbound leads, right, we get contact us forms at Sam Sales or we get referrals, I'll respond so quickly. Obviously, the time I can't respond is when I'm on camera like this, but then afterwards, I'll respond immediately. And what we get is people who are like, they're almost like kind of taken aback, right? And they write and they're like, oh my gosh, like, thanks for writing back so quickly. And I'm like, I can't wait for you to get on Zoom and you to see this framed behind me. But it really makes a difference. Wouldn't you agree? Like if somebody responds urgently versus 4 business days later, wouldn't it set a different mindset for you, Chris?
I mean, I couldn't agree more. And as you were talking, I find myself wondering, and I'm leading the witness a little bit, but why do you think people don't? Like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think that we've got a couple of things that are issues there. One is just the active follow through. We were just talking about this. A few people were talking about it on LinkedIn this week as well. But how many people do the one thing, right? Like they'll send out an email campaign or they will have a discovery call, but they can't quite follow through on the next step, right? On getting to that whatever it is that they need to do. And I think here it's just kind of not moving with kind of that same sense of urgency that you need. To me, we are fighting and fighting and fighting every single day to get meetings, to get just the opportunity to talk to somebody about what we do. So if that comes in, aside from being live on camera, there is literally nothing more important to me. And I think if we could just learn to do that, to operate with that urgency, that'd be great. I will say, there are some people who give me feedback and they're like, doesn't that seem desperate? No, we're here to make a deal, right? Like,
Exactly.
And I think again, your clients are not used to getting that kind of treatment. They're used to getting the runaround, having to chase a rep, having to follow up for a proposal. So if you do that, if instead you are urgent, if you deliver things when you say you will, et cetera, you will stick out like a little sharpened pencil in all of these other dull sales competitor pencils, right? And make a difference. People will want to work with you because they feel like they are a priority too.
I love that. I love that. And that's sort of where I was going. I think the reason people don't is because they're afraid they're going to come across desperate. And to those people, I just say, well, honestly, you're only going to come across desperate if you are.
Yeah.
Right? If you are desperate, then you might come across it. But if you've got a healthy pipeline and you're doing your work and you're a servant leader or a servant salesperson, right, and you're eager to help people, then why wouldn't you respond as quickly as possible? And I've got to give you credit. I mean, something that I learned from you is that in every conversation, you should be trying to do one of two things: helping them or finding someone that can help them, right? And I have to tell you, I actually had a meeting and I've had a meeting with a sales engineer leader 3 times now. And after the third, near the end of the night, and in every conversation, we haven't done business yet, but in every conversation, as a result of the conversation, I've realized that, you know what, there's probably someone that you should talk to. Would you like me to make an introduction to you? And I've done that now 3 times. And at the end of our last conversation, this was right before I saw your post on this. At the end of our conversation, like a good salesperson, I said, might it be helpful to just put a placeholder next month for another conversation? And you know what she said to me? She said, Chris, I'd be delighted to, because every time we talk, I learn something new. And I was like, and I don't know if I'll ever do business with them, but we have a good ongoing relationship. And to me, that's the lesson. Incidentally, we have to say hello to Kerry Sokolsky. He's actually a sales engineer coach, and he dials into quite a few of my sessions. So yes. How slow will they be to respond if, once they already have your money? Incidentally, I had to share this. I learned this a long time ago, and this is even dealing with a customer, but whether you're dealing with a potential client or you're on the sales side, right? If they're difficult during the ask, they will be difficult during the task.
Oh, I love that. It rhymes.
Right? Exactly. Exactly.
Well, this is you're exactly right. This is us courting our clients. This is us going on our first date and our second and our 5th date with our clients. So I guess the question to ask, right, is what do you want the first impression to be? What do you want that first date to look like? And I think about this too, right? If you are, the urgency matters, but pause maybe on the urgency for like 5 minutes and do this. This is where Show Me You Know Me can come. Show Me You Know Me can be threaded through every single part of our sales cycle. But it's this, right? So Chris, if you were introduced to me, let's say by Matt Straza, a common connection that we have at Deltec, perhaps Matt is somebody that introduces you to me and says, Sam, I think you could really help Chris with everything that Sam Sales does, et cetera. I'll let you two connect. I can do one of 2 things. One, I can wait 4 days. I can respond quickly, right? And I can just say, great, Chris, great to meet you. I'd love to chat. Here's, sometimes available, et cetera. Or I could pause for just 2 seconds, and I'm going to pop over to your LinkedIn profile. And this is something that we also talk about. This is where Show Me You Know Me comes in. I'm looking to see, what can I ascertain about you? Who do you know? Where have you worked? Where do you live? You're local, right? Just me coming to say to the table with that and to say, like, Chris, great to meet you. I see you used to work here. By the way, you're local. How wonderful to meet another face in Washington, D.C., et cetera. It just shows that I've made an effort. And frankly, if I can find another common connection, right? Even if I don't know that you know them well, or if I can find that you've worked previously at one of my existing customers, oh my gosh, all bets are off, right? Not only do I already have credibility because I've come in through somebody that you trust in Matt, but now I have even more credibility because I'm referencing other people that we either know in common or people that have hired me that you've worked for before. Just that little thing, urgency plus that, oh my gosh, right?
Totally. And the word that comes to mind too is thoughtful. I mean, we're just being thoughtful, right? We're treating this person as he or she is, which is to say a person, right?
Totally.
I mean, not every introduction is going to be immediate revenue. So get that out of our minds.
And
right?
look at what you were doing with this client, right? That you've met with 3 times and then said, let's put another meeting on the calendar. You are doing something called giving first, right? You are giving first, you're investing in them, you're keeping the relationship alive. You may never get a single dime of business from them, but you know what? You'll get great brand presence. They'll probably recommend you. They'll think of you when they do have a need. And guess what? They're probably not going to work there forever. So if there's a barrier to them hiring you with this company, there may not be at the next one, and they will absolutely remember that you gave first. It's a very worthwhile investment.
Well, and not only that, Sam, but the thing that comes to mind too is keeping in mind the objective, right? If my objective is to just sell you, right? Like I'm here to just sell you. And if I can't sell you and get something from you, I'm just going to move. If that's our objective, we're going about this the wrong way, right?
Yeah, and you're gonna just wedge me in perfectly for one of my other mantras, which is the idea of being a gracious loser. We talk about this a lot, right? And nobody wants to be a loser. We're in sales. We lose like 80% of the deals that come in on average. We're losing a lot. How do we lose, right? So if our goal is just to sell you something, right, and to get the next meeting, to get an introduction, to get the referral, whatever that may be, and if you don't give us what we're looking for, I think that's where we can either employ some gracious loserness or demonstrate not great character. So a couple things I always talk about is if, let's say again with this client, if you get nowhere with this client, right? Let's say she says, you know what, I've so enjoyed our time together. I'm going to keep you in mind. I don't see an opportunity for us to work together yet because of these barriers, whatever. But let's keep in touch. How you respond will be everything to her. Now, there can, of course, be polite pushback if you really think there's an opportunity or a creative way to get around, or you can just say, I totally understand how wonderful it's been to spend time with you. Thank you for even giving me the chance to earn your business, et cetera, et cetera. Be a gracious loser. And I see this a lot where people ask for things and then I might respond and be like, hey, we can't help you, or I don't know this person very well, I can't introduce you. And there's no response back, no gratitude whatsoever. Thanks for even replying. Do you know how hard it is for us to get people to reply? Monstrously hard. So if somebody does you the favor of even responding to a note where you ask for something, just bring your manners game forward and just say, thank you so much for considering and even getting back to me. It takes 12 seconds. Type it out, move on with your life.
Well, and what comes to mind when you say that is on as the, you know, on the receiving end, right? As the buyer in that situation. If I get that email thanking me for even the opportunity to talk, nice to meet you, what it makes me think is, wow, maybe I wasn't just a dollar sign. Right? Because we assume as the buying party, we assume that we're just a dollar sign. We have a term, and I think, you know, I do some work with Aslan training and development, and we have a term called commission breath. We all in sales, we sort of natively have commission breath because everything that we say is tied to a commission, right? And look, it's an unfair part of our job. We're guilty until proven innocent, right?
Exactly.
And so the things that we do both before and after, right, go a long way towards showing that, yes, I do care about more than just the dollar sign, right? I care about you as an individual, and I understand the long-term, the long game that we're playing here, really in life and really in our careers, right? So.
Well, think about this too. We we know now that people change jobs left and right. So just think about when you're going forward with a deal with somebody, and perhaps you are being a gracious loser, perhaps you don't get the deal that you're looking for. Just think about one step further, how far you can take this. And if you are a sales leader that's listening to this, my gosh, you can have such an impact across your team on how to do this. But I'm a big fan of handwritten thank you notes. I'm a sucker for stationery. And one of the things that we'll do is that we'll send a handwritten thank you note to that team when we lose a deal. Of course, when we win the deal too, but when we lose the deal. Why? Because we're grateful to have just been a part of the process. So I think about this, right? I have people who still thank you notes from deals that I lost a decade ago. Like it's pinned up, right? Or thank you notes for anything else that I've sent them through. But think about if you can get, let's say your VP of sales, let's say your account executive, let's say your solutions engineer, to all write thank you notes to the team and just say, thank you so much for letting us be a part of this. We of course wish it had gone differently. We wish you nothing but success. We'd love to be considered. Should anything change down the road, let us know. You will rock their worlds. They'll be like, how are we getting a thank you note for not giving them business? And guess what? Those people will change jobs. I will say one thing. I remember a quarter end deal that we were chasing with a large organization. The person had just moved into this organization. She had used us before. She wanted to use us. And then their VP of IT said, nope, not happening. We wrote handwritten thank you notes and said, thank you for considering us anyway. She changed job I think 6 months later, and she was like, it's going to happen no matter what. Like, I can't believe that you guys sent us thank you notes after we didn't give you business. So this stuff really pays off. Play the long game.
Well, and to be very honest, I mean, the fact that you're handwriting thank you letters, when you win, that alone puts you in rare company. Right? The handwritten, if you're writing a handwritten letter to anyone at any time these days, you're putting yourself in rare company, right?
Right.
To do it after a loss. Incidentally, Meredith Manquist is with us, so she, being a gracious loser, is so key. So thought we'd say hello to Meredith. Meredith, thanks for joining in. Sam, do we have time for one more sales hack? Do you care to share one more?
Yeah, I think I'll talk about the art of nurturing. So I think this is something that we, again, really miss the mark on, and how to just keep ourselves top of mind with our prospects. So there are a ton of different things that we can do to nurture, but I'll give you two of my most favorite and frequent ones. One, as we're going through not only, a disco demo, et cetera, process, I want to make sure we're still adding value and we're nurturing our clients. But certainly once the client says, we've chosen you, you're it, now we've got 8 weeks of hell in front of us to go through procurement and terms and conditions and InfoSec. While we're still going through that, it's really our job to still nurture, right? We want to teach them something, we want to build a better relationship, and we can do that digitally. So one easy thing that you can do is send a nurturing email. And that might be something like, hey, Chris, I was reading this thing about the relationship between sales and solutions engineers. It made me think of you, maybe because of this, or like this one thing you said to me on Friday. Here's my opinion about it, 1 or 2 sentences about the piece, and then here's the link. Hope you enjoy it as well. Can't wait to hear your feedback. Now, in that framework, if you just think about it, it's here's why I thought of you, here's why, here's my opinion on it. Hopefully you agree and we form better rapport. Here's the link, and there's no ask whatsoever. This is not a veiled attempt at like, would you like to schedule 15 minutes to talk about my proposal? Oh, this is just you building value in that person, right? So that's number one. The other thing, if you are a Sales Navigator user, great, you can do this easily. If you're not, get your notebook out and you can do this too. But there's tons of people that I'm trying to nurture to just even get a conversation going. Sure. Right? And so in Sales Navigator, one of the things I do is I save my top prospects. I've got a top 50 list of prospective clients that I want to get in front of. And about every Monday, I'll go in and I'll find 10 or 11 of those prospects. I'll go and see what they've done on LinkedIn, if anything. I'll see if they've posted, if they've commented, and I'll go and add my comment to something that they say. It's not aggressive. It's not over the top. Usually happens about every 4 to 5 weeks, right? And then you can stay top of mind until I break them and they give me a meeting.
Exactly. Well, it's one word that came to mind is subtle, but Sam, it's also authentic. And that's what strikes me, right? Is do you have an objective in doing so? Of course you do. You're trying to grow a business, right? But you're also trying to help people and let people know, hey, I'm here, would love to talk. By the way, loved your last post, etc. Right? And it's just being present. And it's interesting. I ran a workshop last week. This is a very poignant moment in the workshop. And it was a pretty seasoned sales guy. And he says, Chris, a lot of the things that we're talking about here, they're so powerful and they're so effective, but they're not always very convenient.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I said, you're so right. I said, a lot of the things that we need to be, I was like, I'm going to write that down and underline it, right? Because it's not convenient. It's not always the most efficient short term, but long term, by the way, not only is it going to produce the best results, it's the right thing to do, right?
Totally.
I mean, I always come back to the right thing to do. So Sam, we're believe it or not, we're 40 minutes into the conversation already. Time is flying very quickly. I did want to get your opinion about BDR, and you work with BDRs, right, and sales leaders. Yep. I work with a lot of sales engineers, and I'm now working with with software sales teams, right, the AEs and the SEs trying to get along. But do you have any advice either for BDRs who work closely with sales engineers to deliver demos or technical presentations, and or vice versa? SEs working maybe with some younger, more junior BDRs?
Yeah, so I think a couple of things. I've had some tremendous solutions engineers in the past. Thank God for that, because I definitely cannot say the technical jargon. I will say, I think a couple of things to remember are that you guys are after the same goal, right? You are measured on client success. You're measured on client conversion. You're measured on deals coming over the line. So just remember, you guys are after the same goal. You're not adversaries. I think about how often we're in silos, right? We've got our SEs, we've got marketing, we've got sales, et cetera. But you guys are really a team. I think it's also important to remember that you guys don't work for each other. You are a team, so to treat each other with respect. But I think the other thing is to remember how to prepare each other for the upcoming meeting. So I see a lot of salespeople who will say like, hey, Bill, I need you on this call. We're going to talk about some technical stuff. Thanks. Bill has no idea who's joining the call, no idea who the leaders are, no idea where we are in the sales process. None of that, right? So on the sales side, it's really our job to make sure that we prepare our SEs for a really fruitful conversation. I think another thing that we can do there, and I think, Chris, you and I have even talked about this before. One of my old VPs of SEs, Jim, was somebody that I would sometimes need on calls, but I wasn't sure if I would need him. So I would prep him and I'd say, I think this question's going to come up. We're at like the 90% mark in getting this deal over the line. Can you join this call? Introduce yourself, say hello, do your dance, and shiny object them for a while. And then I need you to just tune out. Like, you don't even have to pay attention to this call. You can just multitask. And as soon as something comes up where I'm like, hell if I know, I'll just say, that's a great question. Jim, what's your perspective on this? And then I'll repeat the question for you. What a great way to build that team effort, right? Instead of having poor Jim listen to 60 minutes of mind-numbingness of Sam chat, right? And talk about whatever it is. I'm really just saying, like, I just need your brain, like, when I need it. So here's how we can team up together. Just little easy things we can do to make each other's lives better.
That's so fantastic. And may I just affirm a couple of the things that you just said? So as you know, which I sort of shamelessly have on my wall here, I published the 6 Habits of Highly Effective Sales Engineers. I won't put you on the spot and ask you if you've read the book yet. But
it's on my list.
But habit number 1 is to partner with our sales counterparts. Yeah. And there's a reason why that's habit number 1, because our success builds on the foundation of the partnership with sales. And there's a reason I say sales is a team sport, right? So that's precisely what you're saying. Incidentally, and then you talked about prepare. Incidentally, habit number 3 is to prepare. And it's to prepare with both effectiveness and efficiency in mind. And then the third thought that came to me as you were sharing your example with Jim is I go as far as to say that I believe the way in which we respond to questions makes or breaks the deal.
Yeah.
Right? Because we know what we're preparing to present and show and demonstrate. Question is, what's coming at us?
Right.
And how well are we prepared to respond to and handle those questions?
Well, and this is again another hack that we talk about all the time. What is the question behind the question? So exactly that. Like when we get a question, right? Let's say a client asks me a question that's technical and I'm like, oh, I have no idea. And I know I'm going to pull Jim in. I might say like, that's a great question. And Jim, I think this might be a good one for you. Right. So how do we do this and integrate with that? But before we answer it, right. So now I've perked Jim up, right? I've gotten him involved in the conversation. I've repeated the question. So Jim's like, okay, I'm tracking. I know what we're talking about. And now I'm saying, but tell us more about it first. And this is a basic, right? Sales fundamental, because as soon as you pose that question back, like unpack this for me, you're either going to get it's not really important to us, or a whole mess of crap about why it's important. And then those are the keys to how you sell your product specifically with that need in mind.
So love that. I tell, particularly when a sales engineer is giving a demonstration and they get a question, by the way, what is the mistake that they tend to make? They just jump right in and answer the question.
Right, happy ears.
Like,
is this
exactly like slow down here, right? And particularly the tough one, I would say, first of all, acknowledge the person asking the question and the question itself, right? It's just polite. Repeat the question. Right? Either sometimes I'll repeat the question verbatim because I may not, or sometimes I'll paraphrase, right? And there's a couple reasons. One, I'm sort of buying myself 30 or 60 seconds to come up with a good answer. But what happens when somebody hears their question repeated back to them? They ask a better question. They say, well, what I really mean is, well, great, because we really want to know what you really mean, right?
Yeah.
So
that's the art of mirroring. That's a tough one to say. And I think a lot of people they know this concept. I will say, make sure if you mirror, make sure you don't mirror verbatim every single time, right? Because I've been on those calls where it's like, Chris, is the question you're asking verbatim? And then you're like, yes, that's the question I'm asking. And then it can get really awkward really quickly.
I'm glad you said that. And by the way, I have to tell you, so when I tell people acknowledge the person and acknowledge the question, but thanks for, good question, Sam. Glad you asked. Sam, good question. Good question, right? We can't go too far overboard there as well. So we have to be, and I learned that the hard way, by the way. I was giving, and it was a pretty long demo. And I was being sincere. Good question. But it literally got to the point where the people in the room were saying, let me guess, Chris, good question. Like, okay, I get the point.
They're starting to do a tequila shot every single time you say it. It's going to become a drinking game with you.
Yes, indeed. So Sam, I want to be respectful of your time. You have been unbelievably gracious to give me 50 minutes at this point. Now, I like to close these sessions with 3 quick questions that my guest doesn't necessarily see coming.
Oh boy.
May I take us into this sort of final round here?
Let's rock it. Let's see what you got.
Okay. So as you know, sales engineers, one of the things that we do, it's a big part of our job, is giving demonstrations. Now, I don't know if you've ever given a demonstration, but my guess is you've probably given certainly your fair share of sales presentations, if not demonstrations. So my first question for you, have you ever given a demo or a sales presentation that just went horribly wrong?
Ooh.
And if so, and you're really good at what you do.
Yeah.
But was there ever a moment where it just for whatever reason, the demo or the presentation just failed?
Well, for sure. It's technology. I sold SaaS my entire career. So we do have plenty of times where things don't pop up the right way. Or the worst part for me is like when we're like, watch what happens next. And we push a button and it doesn't work. So I'll tell you a couple things. Like we've just built in fail safes. Some of my old reps at one of my old companies will tell you this, and won't name them, so we don't disparage that the technology once never worked. But we would have a page, we would hit a button, it would take us to a next page, and sometimes that button wouldn't work. So we'd have a second tab that was open, already pre-populated with all that information. And if we clicked on the button and it didn't work, we knew. And instead of being like, oh crap, we were just like, great. And then poof, what you see here, it's almost like taking the prepared thing out of the oven on a cooking show.
Exactly.
Right. So just a little preparation of like, what could go wrong and how can we plan B in advance so that the client doesn't know any differently. Man, that sounds calculated and sneaky.
Look, habit number 4 is to practice. And I say click every click. Incidentally, I like to say what's the one thing we don't want after a click?
Nothing.
A surprise. I want to know exactly what's coming. Okay, so that's question 1. Question 2, we're going to reverse the role. We're going to reverse the situation. Have you ever been on a receiving end, or do you recall being on the receiving end of a demo that was particularly good?
Oh, good.
And particularly because asking people if they've ever been on the receiving end of a demo that was bad, honestly, that list is way too long for most people, to be very transparent. Have you ever been on the receiving end of a demo that was particularly good and particularly engaging and compelling?
This is going to make me sound like a horrible person, but I have, and it truly has only been the reps that have been on my team. I know that sounds terrible. It really, most sales demos miss the mark for me. And I think that the reason that they do is because we are taught to sell the product, not how to sell in general or how to solve the problem of the person. So countless demos where I'm like, this is actually where we want to go, or like, do you have a solution that does this? And the person's like, if I can just finish my slide presentation, and you're like, oh my God, right? Like, it's awful. But I will say, like, where we nail the mark, I guess I could say, is number 1, just setting an agenda. And doesn't have to be like, at first I would like to cover this rigid agenda, right? But just like, here's what I plan on doing today. Here's kind of the roadmap of what we're going to do. I'm going to show you this point, then we're going to go to this point. I'll finish up with kind of this point, and then we'll leave questions for Q&A. Before I dive in, how does that sound, first of all, right? And just getting the feedback, giving that roadmap and that agenda so people know where they are as the demo goes. And then I know it's impossible to think that I can ever stop talking, but stop talking at some point, right? Talk about a feature, talk about the benefit, talk about the so what of that, and be like, okay, let me pause here. Like, tell me a little bit about your feedback. What are your thoughts so far and what you see here? Nice, open-ended question. Create that ping pong. Don't hit yourself in the face because you get so excited. But create that engagement with the customer instead of putting them to sleep.
Yeah, I so love that. And by the way, I'm actually feeling happily validated because a number of the things that you're talking about are in my book and in the workshops that I run. In fact, I have, you'll read the so what principle at some point, and the so what principle is for every part of your demo before you're going in, you should be asking yourself, so what? Why should anybody care? And if you can't effectively answer that question, more importantly, why should this customer or prospect care?
Well,
right?
I'll tell you, yeah. And it's something really interesting. Like, we break it down to a really basic level. So let's think about, for 2 seconds, let's say you're selling a Tesla, right? So all electric cars, we all know what these are. You're selling a Tesla and you say, this Tesla has no gas whatsoever. It's completely battery powered. You don't have to fuel up. And so when you say that, it's the feature, the benefit is you don't have to fuel up. Most reps think that that's enough. That's enough. I don't have to tell anybody more than that excitement. So what? So what? Remember all those mornings when you're rushing out of the house, maybe before, to get to the office, and you get in the car and it's an empty fuel tank? You never have to do that again. So what? Right? What's the so what? Like, even if it seems obvious to you, it's probably not obvious to them, and we don't want them to guess. Yeah.
I love that. We need to connect the dots for them. Don't just put it out there hoping that they'll be able to connect the dots. So,
right.
So love that. I wish, incidentally, Meredith said the curves of the live demo.
Oh
yes,
my God, the
Meredith,
worst.
Believe me, it's honestly, it's why I have a business myself now, because there's a lot of need in the market. All right, Sam, the landing gear is officially out. The runway is in sight. We're going to land this plane on time.
Okay.
Last question. If you could ask me one question, what would it be?
I would really love to know, like, where's the one place where we can be better partners to you, from the sales side to the SE side, outside of preparedness, outside of anything. Where's a miss that you see that happens a lot that we can take as a learning from you?
The word that comes to mind is assumptions. We are not, and by the way, it's on both sides of the sales equation, right? On one side, we're not the propeller head, in most cases, we're not the knucklehead, propeller head, engineer that many of you sort of think we are. And by the way, we care more about the deal than I think a lot of times you think we do, or that we may indicate. On the flip side, sales just doesn't come as naturally to us.
Yeah.
And there's things like buying signals and buying signs and other things that just come natural to the salespeople that aren't as natural to us.
Yeah.
So come to, and let's just put things on the table. There's a matrix that I've created that shows it compares the typical AE with the typical SE, right? So for example, how do we tend to respond to questions? I like to say that the sales professional tends to round up with their questions, right? They tend to answer with room for interpretation. The sales engineer, on the other hand, tends to answer with precision.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What you hear as something that might kill or slow the deal, right, is just us being precise. What we hear as something that sounds like an exaggeration, right, or a flat out lie, if I'm being honest.
What?
Right?
No, never.
Is just you answering to your best ability, rounding up, right? Totally. What do salespeople fear the most in the context of a deal?
That you're going to tell the truth?
Well, exactly. But they fear losing the deal, right? What do sales engineers fear the most?
That we're going to go ahead.
Losing credibility.
Right. Exactly. That we're going to overpromise and underdeliver, or sell something that we cannot possibly deliver on.
Exactly. And by the way, what do both groups tend to think about the other? They have no idea how hard my job is, right? That's what the sales folks think. What do the sales engineers think? They have no idea how hard my job is. Right?
Exactly.
So that's it. I think both sides make a lot of assumptions, and I think if we could ask ourselves, salespeople, just ask yourselves, what assumptions might I be making about what this person is thinking going into the meeting, what this person has planned going into the meeting, what they're going to demonstrate, and let's just work really hard to remove those assumptions. I think we would all get along and work and be more successful together.
I love it. So, couldn't have said it better myself. I love that point of view.
So Sam, we are literally 59 minutes into it. I want to be respectful. You probably have a dozen things to do. May I ask you to just share any closing thoughts before we wrap things up?
I think for anyone that is listening, that, no matter how far along you are in your career, both on the SC side and the sales professional side, just think about, have you really mastered the foundations of sales, right? And I think from both sides of like mastering how to work with your cross-functional partners and your relationships, but mastering the basics, discovery calls, great outbound emails, how to respond to a referral, just the basics that we're going to go through, right, in every turn of our sales process. If not, I would really encourage you to make sure you learn those foundations, master them, because those foundations will be part of your career forever. They're part of mine, even as a CEO. It's really one of the most important things. So nail that out of the park. Fantastic words. And how can people find out more about the BDR hotline? Yeah, so please come find us on samsalesconsulting.com. We've got tons of resources there. We've got a great newsletter that goes out every Friday with all of our hit list and tips and tricks. We've got a huge announcement that went out today, a giveaway. So come over there. And there's also a section about all of our solutions. But if you want more too, we've got a ton of video library that's been built with a ton of videos for Sam Shorts. So if you want to get even more, listen to my voice even more than you did today, great resource for basically every hurdle you hit in sales right there on our site.
Fantastic, fantastic. And when you're ready to start coaching other sales consultants and sales trainers to help them grow their business, I may be knocking on your door as well. So
I'm humbled, Chris. Ready to rock and roll.
Well, Sam, thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure, a delight. I'm honored to have spent an hour with you. I'm sure my audience is going to just get so much out of this. So thank you so much.
Thank you back, Chris. Thanks everybody for joining us today.
Indeed. Take care all.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.